Have you ever had a single sentence echo in your mind for years? Maybe something someone said to you in anger that still stings whenever you remember it. Have you ever said something in a moment of irritation, watched the other person's face fall, and then realized that no matter how many times you apologize, you can never fully pull those words back? Welcome back to the channel, my friend. I'm really glad you are here. Today we are going to talk about something so ordinary that most people never notice how powerful it really is: the words that come out of your mouth. Original teaching behind this topic can be summarized in a very sharp reminder from a great teacher. Your mouth is one of the strongest karmic forces in this entire life, where speech can become a bridge that heals, or a knife that cuts, a lamp that guides, or a fire that burns down trust, family, friendship, and even your own future. You're going to walk slowly and honestly into this topic, not with abstract rules and moral slogans, but with real stories, living examples, and direct reflection. You will look at what happens in your mind a split second before you say something harsh, how one careless joke can wound someone for a decade, what angry or dishonest speech plants very heavy karmic seeds, and how learning to use your mouth with wisdom and compassion can completely change your destiny. As you listen, you might bring to mind one sentence that hurt you deeply, and one sentence you regret saying to someone else. Let them sit quietly in your soul while we explore how speech connects to awakening, wisdom, karma, compassion, practice, and the shape of your life. Imagine a boy named Daniel. When he is 8 years old, he is standing in the kitchen, hands sticky with flour, trying to help his mother bake a cake. He is clumsy, the batter spills, the bowl nearly falls. He is trying hard, but in a moment of stress, his mother snacks. He turns and says sharply, "You are so useless. Every time you help, you only make things worse." He does not really mean those words. He is tired, worried about bills, rushing to prepare food for guests. A minute later, he regrets it, but the phone rings and he gets distracted. The day continues. He forgets. Daniel does not. For the rest of that day, he is quiet. He plays alone. Seed has been planted in his heart. The words are like a tattoo in the mind. You are so useless. Years go by. He grows up. On the surface, he forgets the kitchen scene, but every time he makes a mistake, every time a project fails, every time someone criticizes him, that old sentence wakes up like a ghost, whispering, "See, you really are useless." Every challenge in life presses that invisible bruise. He becomes hesitant to try new things. He is easily ashamed. He habitually thinks, "I am the one who makes things worse." All of this from one sentence spoken in less than 3 seconds. I imagined another scene. A girl named Mai is 15. He has just given a short speech in class. The voice shook. He forgot some lines. When he finishes, he wants to disappear. Her hands are cold. Her stomach is tight. After class, as he is stuffing her papers into her back, the teacher walks over, looks her in the eye, and says quietly, "I know you were nervous, but you did something brave today. You stood up and spoke even though you were afraid. That courage matters more than perfection. You have a clear mind. If you keep going, you will become very strong at this." The teacher then walks away. He probably forgets the moment entirely. It was just a small comment between tasks. I does not forget. Whenever he faces something scary in later life, the job interview, the difficult conversation, a new challenge, that sentence comes back. You did something brave. That courage matters more than perfection. You will become strong at this. At one sentence becomes a silent coach walking beside her. It does not remove all fear, but it gives her enough strength to take the next step. New lives, new different seeds, both planted with words that took only a few seconds to say. This is the karmic power of speech. Karma is not some mysterious punishment system in the sky. It is cause and effect unfolding through body, speech, and mind. When you move your body, you plant seeds. When you think, you plant seeds. And you speak, you plant seeds. Seeds in your own consciousness and seeds in the consciousness of others. Those seeds sprout later as emotions, beliefs, actions, and experiences. Because speech is so fast and feels so light, people often underestimate it. You cannot punch someone without noticing, but you can stab them with words almost without realizing what you are doing. That is why many teachers say speech karma is one of the most dangerous and powerful kinds. In 1 minute of talking, you can generate more karma than in an hour of silent thought, where math is a doorway through which compassion or cruelty flows into the world. Let us look inside more carefully at what happens before a harsh word comes out. Imagine you are in a heated argument. Your partner, your child, your colleague says something that triggers you. Maybe they criticize you. Maybe they misunderstand you. Maybe they act in a way you feel is unfair. In that moment, there is a flash of hurt and anger. Your chest tightens. Your heart beats faster. Your mind starts producing thoughts. You always do this. You never listen. You are so selfish. You are so stupid. The same time, your mouth prepares a response. If you are not aware, the words leap out like arrows. You are useless. You are disgusting. You are just like your mother. And never loved you. Wish you would just disappear. You know from your own experience how it feels to hear such words. The body freezes, the stomach drops, something fragile in the heart cracks. Now imagine this scene from the viewpoint of karma. In that moment when anger rises and your mouth opens, several things are happening at once. Inside you, anger is strengthened. You are recursing the habit of exploding under pressure. You plant a seed that makes it more likely you will explode again in the future. In the other person, a painful belief is planted. Perhaps they already secretly suspect they are unlovable or powerless. Your words water that suspicion. Grows. Between you, a crack appears in the relationship. Even if you later apologize, the memory of that sentence remains like a thin shard of glass. All of this from one burst of sound. The worst part is that usually you do not fully mean those words. People say the most hurtful things not when they are calm, but when they are hijacked by emotion. They may feel sorry later, but the arrow has already flown. This does not mean you must never express anger or hurt. Suppressing all emotion is not healthy. What it does mean is that there is a difference between saying, "I'm really angry and this hurt me," and saying, "You are worthless and I hate you." The first kind of speech expresses your experience without attacking the other person's basic worth. The second kind attacks their identity. Karma from the second is much heavier. Really understand how speech builds or destroys lives, we can look at many kinds of harmful speech that the old teachings warned about. Not as moral rules to obey blindly, but as maps of how the mouth can either channel ignorance or awakening. There is harsh speech, the obvious attacks, insults, and cruel jokes. Air is divisive speech, talking in a way that turns people against each other, repeating gossip to fan conflict, emphasizing the faults of one person in front of another in order to break their bond. Air is false speech, lying to gain advantage, lying to avoid responsibility, lying to manipulate. Air is idle speech, constant meaningless chatter that wastes time and energy, especially when it drifts easily into gossip and criticism. When you look at your day honestly, you might be surprised how often each of these appears, even in soft or sophisticated ways. You may not shout or swear, but you might use irony, subtle sarcasm, or polite words with a cutting edge. The teachings are not trying to make you parent or silent. They were inviting you to see clearly what you are creating every time you open your mouth. We explore this more deeply. Let us walk through some stories. There was a man named Victor who prided himself on being honest and straightforward. He believed in speaking his mind. If he thought someone was doing something wrong, he would say so without sugarcoating. He considered this a virtue. Work. When a colleague made a mistake, he would say in front of others, "How many times do I have to tell you, or are you not thinking at all?" At home, when his wife cooked something he did not like, he would say, "Why do you always mess up the simplest things?" He told himself, "I am just telling the truth. People need to hear it." For time, however, he noticed something. Work. People stopped asking for his opinion unless they had to. He avoided him in the lunchroom. Home. His wife grew quiet. His teenage daughter stopped sharing things with him. Friends rarely opened up about their problems. He started feeling lonely and misunderstood. He told himself that the world was too sensitive, that people could not handle honesty anymore. One day, during a workshop on communication that he attended reluctantly, the facilitator gave an exercise. Each person had to sit quietly and receive feedback from others about how their speech felt. It was not about content, but about impact. When it was Victor's turn, people hesitated at first. Then one colleague spoke up. He said, "When you speak to me, I often feel small and stupid. I know you are trying to be efficient, but your words make me afraid to ask questions." The other person said, "I avoid talking to you because I feel judged. Even when you are right about the facts, the way you say things hurts." His wife, who had been invited for this exercise, added softly, "When you talk to me like that, I feel like I will never be good enough for you. I know you work hard for the family, but your words make this house feel like a battlefield." For the first time, Victor saw that his so-called honesty was mixed with aggression, impatience, and contempt. He realized he had been using truth as a weapon. The facilitator said something that cut straight through. Honesty without kindness is cruelty. Kindness without honesty is hypocrisy. True right speech unites both. From that day, Victor began to treat his mouth as a training field. Before speaking, he started to ask himself, "Is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? And can I say it in a way that does not cross the other person's heart?" He did not become perfect overnight. Old habits still burst out, but slowly he practiced pausing, softening his tone, separating the person from the behavior. He went from saying, "You are useless," to saying, "This result is not what we need. Let us figure out together how to improve it." He went from saying, "You always mess up," to saying, "This did not go well. Can we look at what happened without blaming?" His words turned from knives into tools. His karma shifted. Friendships warmed. His wife began to smile more. His daughter tested him by sharing small things, and when he responded with gentler words, gradually opened deeper. The point is not that he became fake. He still told the truth, but he stopped confusing harshness with strength. The teaching that your math is your strongest karma does not mean you must become silent. It means that if you want to change your life, one of the most powerful places to start is with how you speak. Let us look at another example, the karma of gossip. Imagine a woman named Nina who loves connection, is friendly, warm, and enjoys talking with people. Unfortunately, he also has a habit of talking about others when they are not present. If a friend shares something vulnerable, he listens with sympathy, but later she might repeat it to another friend as an interesting story. When conflicts rise in her social circle, he often takes on the role of the messenger, carrying complaints and criticisms from one side to the other. He tells herself that he is just venting or bonding. He does not intend harm. But slowly, people around her start to feel uneasy. They sense that what they say might not stay with her. Trust thinness. One day, a close friend finally tells her, "I love you, but I do not feel safe telling you certain things because I am not sure they will stay between us." Those words hit her deeply. He realizes that her casual chatter has real consequences. From a karmic view, every time he passes along someone's weakness or mistake, he is not just moving sound through the air, he is shaping reputations, influencing how people see each other, and adding confusion to already painful situations. Even if the information is true, sharing it without the person's consent, without the aim of genuinely helping, is like taking their most tender places and laying them on a cold table for others to poke at. It is easy to underestimate the weight of such speech. Few sentences of gossip can stain a person's image in another's mind for years. It can damage friendships, families, and communities. The teachings on right speech encourage us to ask, before repeating something about someone else, am I adding clarity or adding poison? Does this help anyone grow, heal, or understand, or does it simply satisfy my own boredom, insecurity, or desire to feel important? When you restrain yourself from gossip, you are not just obeying a rule, you are protecting the karmic field around you from unnecessary pollution. Now, let us turn inward. We have talked about words you say to others, but some of the most powerful speech karma is created by how you speak to yourself. There is the external mouth and there is the inner mouth, the internal voice that comments on everything you do. If you pay attention, you might notice that this inner voice can be extremely cruel. It may say things to you that you would never dare say to someone you love. You idiot. You always fail. You are unlovable. You will never change. These sentences may run silently, but they plant seeds in your consciousness. They shape your mood, your confidence, your choices. They create a karmic environment inside your own mind. How did that inner voice learn to speak? Often, it learned from the other voices you heard as a child and teenager. If parents, teachers, or peers spoke harshly, those patterns were copied. How? Every time you repeat them internally, you are continuing the karma of harmful speech, even if the original people are no longer around. Spiritual practice invites you to include this inner speech in your path. It is not enough to refrain from hurting others with words if you are constantly stabbing yourself. You can ask, would I talk to a friend this way? If the answer is no, then you have discovered an area where compassion needs to be extended inward. This does not mean you should flatter yourself or deny your mistakes. Honest self-reflection is vital, but there is a big difference between saying, I made a mistake and I can learn from it, and saying, I am a worthless failure. The first sentence opens a door. The second slams it shut. Every time you choose the first kind of inner speech, you plant seeds of resilience and growth. Every time you choose the second, you deepen shame and paralysis. Yes, your math is also the way you whisper to your own heart. That too is part of your karma. Now we can ask, how does all this connect to awakening, wisdom, compassion, and destiny? Awakening, in many teachings, is described as seeing reality as it truly is, beyond the distortions of ego and ignorance. Right speech is one of the practices that prepare the mind for this clarity. When you lie, exaggerate, or twist words, you train your mind to live in illusion. You drift away from what is actually happening into a world of stories designed to protect your image or gain temporary advantage. For time, your own tongue becomes your jailer. You cannot relax because you must remember which lies you told. You cannot trust others because you know how easy it is to manipulate with words. When you commit to speaking truthfully, kindly, and carefully, you train your mind to stay closer to what is real. This builds a foundation for deeper insight. Wisdom is not only about understanding emptiness or subtle philosophy. It is also about seeing the consequences of your words and choosing them wisely. Compassion, too, is deeply tied to speech. When you are truly aware of the fragility of hearts, of how many invisible wounds people carry, you become more careful with your tongue. You understand that behind the face in front of you is a whole universe of memories, fears, hopes, and pain. Compassionate speech does not mean you always say pleasant things. Sometimes the most loving thing is to say something difficult, but the intention behind it is to help the other person grow, not to crush them. Karma and destiny are shaped by the habits you reinforce. If day after day you use your mouth to hurt, divide, and deceive, you are building a future in which you live surrounded by mistrust, broken relationships, and inner heaviness. If day after day you use your mouth to encourage, clarify, and connect, you are building a future in which you live surrounded by trust, support, and inner lightness. It is not magic. It is cause and effect. Let us consider one more story, this time about someone whose destiny changed drastically when he recognized the karmic power of his mouth. His name is Baron. He grew up in a family where shouting and cutting humor were normal. The dinner table, sarcasm was the main language. Love was rarely spoken directly. Instead, people teased each other harshly and pretended it was all fun. As a teenager and young adult, he developed a sharp tongue. He was the one who always had a clever comeback, always knew how to crush a person in a debate, always turned everything into a joke. His friends admired his wit. But as he entered his 30s, he began to notice a pattern. Relationships ended with dramatic fights. Holocaust described him as intimidating. When conflict arose, people often said, "It is impossible to talk to you. You twist everything and make me feel stupid." He started feeling isolated. On that time, he attended a weekend meditation retreat. During one of the talks, the teacher shared a line that pierced him. Your tongue is like a sword. You can use it to cut through ignorance or to harm. Every day you sharpen it. With each word you choose, you decide who that sword serves. Later that night, Aaron sat outside under the stars and replayed conversations from his life. He saw, like scenes in a movie, the faces of people he had verbally cut down, their flinches, their silences, their tears after the argument ended. He realized that many of his proudest moments, where he had won arguments or seemed impressive, were actually moments where he had created heavy karma. He felt deep remorse. The teacher had also said, remorse is not meant to cross you, but to wake you up. When you see the harm you have done, you can make a vow to use your speech differently from now on. So he made a vow. He decided that from this day onward, he would use his tongue primarily to encourage, to clarify, and to bring people together. He knew he would fail sometimes. His old habits were strong, but he also knew that every time he succeeded in speaking differently, he was rewriting his future. He began with small steps. He apologized to a few people he had hurt badly, not with drama, but with sincerity. He said, I see now that the way I spoke to you was harmful. I'm sorry. I'm working on changing this. He started listening more in conversations, letting others finish before responding. He practiced affirming what he genuinely appreciated in people. He saved his sharp tongue for cutting through confusion in his own mind, not for slicing others. Over the years, his life changed. He became someone people trusted with their vulnerability. He was still intelligent, still articulate, but his words now carried warmth instead of coldness. He described that change later as one of the most important turning points in his destiny. The external details of his life, his job, his city, did not change overnight, but the quality of his relationships, the atmosphere around him, and his inner state transformed. All because he realized that his math, used unconsciously, had been his biggest source of negative karma, and that the same math, used consciously, could become his biggest source of positive karma. So what can you do, practically, to bring more awareness, wisdom, and compassion into your speech? You can start with one simple practice, pausing. Pause for one breath before you answer, especially in emotionally charged situations. In that one breath, ask yourself, what am I about to create with this sentence? You do not have to give long speeches. Even a small change, like choosing not to say the cruel estate version of your thought, makes a difference. You can practice separating observation from judgment. Instead of saying, you are lazy, you can say, I notice that these tasks have not been done, and I feel stressed about it. Instead of saying, you are always attacking me, you can say, when you speak in that tone, I feel hurt and defensive. This does not guarantee that the other person will respond well, but it reduces the karmic weight of your speech and keeps the conversation closer to truth. You can also make a habit of using your words to water wholesome seeds in others. When you see someone acting with kindness, mention it. When a child tries something difficult, praise their effort, not only their success. When a friend is struggling, remind them of their strengths. These are not empty compliments. They are ways of planting and watering seeds of confidence, kindness, and courage. You can commit to reducing gossip. When others start to talk about someone who is not present, you can gently shift the conversation, or at least refuse to add fuel. You can ask yourself, if this person were here, would I say this? If the answer is no, it is a sign that silence might be wiser. You can work consciously on your inner speech. When you catch yourself calling yourself names, you can pause and replace those phrases with more accurate and compassionate ones. Instead of "you are hopeless," you can say, "this is difficult and I'm still learning." Instead of "you always ruin everything," you can say, "I made a mistake, but I have also done many things well." For time, this transforms your inner karmic climate. You can also use formal spiritual practice to cleanse and guide your speech. Any traditions encourage recitation of sacred phrases or prayers. When done with sincere intention, these repeated words can reshape your habitual pattern of speech. If you spend 30 minutes every day chanting words that are full of love, wisdom, and surrender, it becomes harder to spend the rest of the day speaking crudely without noticing the contrast. It is not magic, it is training. In the end, your mouth is a tool. It is not good or bad by itself. Becomes a source of suffering or a source of blessing depending on how you use it. Once you see clearly that a single sentence can hurt someone for years or heal someone for years, you cannot pretend speech is light. You do not need to become perfect. You will still occasionally say things you regret. When that happens, you can apologize quickly, learn from it, and recalm it. The goal is not to control every syllable with fear, but to cultivate a general direction, a tendency toward truth, kindness, and usefulness in your speech. If you do that, your karma shifts. People feel safe around you. Your own mind becomes less cluttered with the heavy weight of regretful words. Your relationships deepen. Your path of awakening gains a powerful ally, a mouth that helps instead of harms. Before we close, I invite you to think of one person you have hurt with your words and one person whose words have deeply supported you. You might decide to reach out to the first person, if appropriate, and express your remorse and wish to do better. You might decide to thank the second person for the gift they gave you with their speech. And you might decide from this moment on to treat your own mouth as a sacred instrument, ate. If this reflection resonated with you, if you remembered sentences that still echo in your life, or if you recognized how often your own tongue runs ahead of your wisdom, you are warmly invited to share in the comments. You do not need to name names. You can simply share what you learned about speech in your own journey. Your story may be what someone else needs to hear in order to pick up their own practice of mindful speaking. If you want to keep walking together through topics like this, exploring awakening, wisdom, karma, compassion, the hidden power of habits, and the way small daily choices quietly shape your destiny, remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you will not miss future long-form talks. If you feel called to support this work more directly, you can also consider joining as a member. Your support helps us continue creating sincere, thoughtful content for you and for many others who are quietly seeking a clearer mind and a kinder heart. Thank you for staying all the way until the end, for your willingness to look honestly at something as ordinary as your own mouth and see the extraordinary karmic power it carries. Until next time, May you use your words to heal more than you hurt, to connect more than you divide, and may every sentence that passes your lips move you and those around you a little closer to real peace, real compassion, and real wisdom. Every person carries a certain energy. Your focus, your dreams, your purpose. Bracelet is a physical reminder of that energy. Symbol you wear daily that pushes you to stay grounded, balanced, and aligned. If one of the bracelets caught your eye, you can order it through the link in the description and check more powerful styles on our homepage store. Choose the one that strengthens your journey.